Hello, everyone, and welcome to my new show, Out of Nowhere. Our guest today is John Ventra. John was 10 years a multi-state director for Mutual UFO Network. It was John's research to the end time prophecy and cultures, but got him in UFOs in 1996. Can we please welcome John to the show? Hello there.
How you doing? Thanks for having me on, Bob. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you on the show.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was head of security at UPS. I was an executive there for 26 years. And it's funny, nobody knew that I was doing UFO investigations. So they first found out when I was on the Discovery Channel in 2008. I was 51, but that's how the people at work found out that I was doing this. But I've written 11 books. I tried to get involved politically over here in Pennsylvania, and I ran for county commissioner twice, head of the Republican Party. I also ran for governor here, but politics is a funny thing. They have their people and they fight you, man. They don't want somebody else, that they can't control. It's all about control. So that's pretty much my background on, what I've done.
I've just seen the flag at back of you. Can you explain to the listeners what's that flag's about?
Yeah, well, the flag is the Templar flag, the Knights Templar, and who knew that they were still around, But I had bought some merchandise from them. They really work out of London and Ulster, Ireland, Northern Ireland. And, I bought some merchandise, and then they called me last August, and said, "You want to become a Knights Templar?" And I said, "Yeah, actually I do, because I don't like people who turn the other cheek. I like forceful people. I don't have any tolerance for weakness. And, with the politics here, with all this liberal stuff and the woke stuff, that's not for me." So I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, we don't turn the other cheek." I said, "Well, you're in." So I flew over to Ireland in October, and I was knighted. So I'm a Knights Templar. It's actually Sir John. And I became a Knights Templar last October 21st.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Can we start talking about the books, the prophecy book?
Yeah, well, I was working with UPS back, that was in 1995, 96. I was traveling all over the country for 18 months. So, it was getting kind of boring. I don't drink. It's like, what do I do at night? But I always had all these ideas. I wanted to write a book. So what I did was I said, "Well, what am I going to write the book on? The year 2000?" I said, "I don't think I have enough time to write it." It was 1996. And so I said, "Well, I think I'm going to write it on the Mayan calendar in 2012. That give me more time to get the book ready and done. I've never written anything." So as I'm researching, all of these cultures for their beliefs in end time prophecy, what do Asians believe? What do Christians believe? What do the Mayans believe? All of that. I started coming across a lot of them were talking about star people on flying shields. It sounded like they were talking about, extraterrestrials, that they had been visited or gotten some knowledge from extraterrestrials. And people say that, about the Mayans too. So that's really how I started writing that book in 96, 12/21, 2012, A Prophecy. And I didn't publish it until 2007. That's how long it took me. But along the way, I said, you know what? I'm going to start investigating UFOs. I want to find out what this is about. And I didn't know anything about UFOs. I wasn't into UFOs at all. I would, I was Comic-Con, HorrorCon, that type of stuff. I went to all of those shows, but and I knew nothing about UFOs. So in 1998, I joined the Mutual UFO Network. I became a field investigator, and and basically then it was a couple of years later they asked me to be a state section director. Then I think it was like 2006 they asked me to be the Pennsylvania state director for the Mutual UFO Network. So I said, yeah, I'll do that, because at work I had 3 states. I had Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Virginia. So they ended up giving me 7 states, 7 in the Northeast. So I became the state director for the Mutual UFO Network. But what happened though was I became, like in 06. So in 08, we had this huge investigation. People were reporting UFOs coming out of Lake Erie, right? And then they would come down Lake Erie into West Virginia, Pittsburgh. They'd go across the state, and then they'd go out by Philadelphia and Bucks County, and they seemed to go out into the Atlantic Ocean. And we would get 2 reports a week. So when this investigation started, we ended up getting 253 cases in like 4 months. So almost 3 times as many reports came in a short 3-4 month period. So, right in the middle of that, MUFON decides they're going to do a TV show. So they said to us, well, they need another case to do a TV series on Discovery Channel. And they asked if I wanted to do it on this one. I said, okay, but we're in the middle of investigating it. So they gave us the History Channel, the Discovery Channel got involved. And right in the middle of doing this investigation, we're filming a TV show, which, it was good in one sense because they actually paid for some of the investigation. They did, it was some of the lab work. Somebody had to pay for it, so they paid for it, and that helped us. But then, you don't really want media coverage in the middle of an investigation. It makes it hard to figure it out. But we had 2 sightings in particular that were very, very interesting. There was this woman, Denise, and then there was a man, Cliff. And they were both around the same time. It was April, May. April, May was the bulk of them. They each, Denise saw something 4 or 5 times, and Cliff 3 times. But what Denise, she lived in an apartment, and both of them, their dog would start barking at like 4 a.m, and it would wake them up. And Denise, she went out to her back door and looked, and each time she would see this triangular craft in the sky, and it had 3 lights on it and 1 big light in the middle. And one time she went outside in the yard, and it came really close. It was just like a couple of 100 feet from her, but it released these probes out of it. And there was these small little metallic probes. They'd sparkle, and they went in her tree. And she said it looked like Christmas, like the tree was lit up, for Christmas. And then they kind of got sucked back up into the craft, and it left. So she reported it, and my investigator, Bob Gardner, went over there, And it's interesting. He cut the leaves from the tree, and then he went to a tree, in the front of the house, around the corner. So he cut samples, and we sent them to a couple of labs, and the labs come back and say that the leaves. One lab said the leaf had high levels of boron on them. And boron, though, I said, so what do we use boron on? We use that in stealth aircraft is painted. There's boron on them, and paints for nuclear reactors on the inside use boron. So why would she have boron on her trees? So, what she said, something really happened. Another lab did an analysis, and it came back and said the leaves had high levels of anthocyanin on them. And that's something that's the leaf produces when it's under high heat or radiation. So when she told the story that these probes landed in her tree, something happened. So the show airs, and then we get, I don't know, do you get UFO Hunters with Bill Burns? Do you know who he is? UFO Hunters with Bill Burns. Well, he had a show on called UFO
Yeah, I do,
Hunters.
yeah.
Yeah. At the time, UFO Hunters was on, so Bill Burns gets involved with the History Channel. He brings in some sketch artists, and they interviewed the people. There were like 6, 7 different people saw it, and they all sketched the same triangular craft with the 3 lights on the corner and 1 in the center. So, who knows? I mean, what she said, she saw something. She saw something. And, it's funny, a couple of years later, the landlord, because the property was getting so much attention, he cut the tree down. He said it was too close to the building. So he ended up cutting the tree down so that there'd be no attention. Yeah. So, but then, we did that other case with Cliff. Now, Cliff lived in a very expensive house. He was an architect. And what Cliff had said was that, they went to bed. His wife slept in a different room because he snored loud, right? So again, the dog starts barking. He rolls over and he looks out the window, and he sees a big craft hovering, moving really slow in the sky. So then it's, a couple of weeks later, this happens to him a couple of times. It happens again. And, he gets up, he looks out the window, and there it is. It's a large craft. So it happens again. And he goes and he wakes his wife up, and they go out into the backyard, and there's a heat lightning storm. And when the lightning goes off, he can see the craft. It's kind of docked. It was six-sided. But he could see when the lightning went off, you could see through where the craft were, triangular craft. It looked like some sort of a mothership or a docking station. And, he was able to see six craft. And what he had said, though, was that there were a couple of things. He said that very strange. He said when it happened, he would hear organ music. And he didn't know what that meant. He would hear organ music in his house. Which and he didn't want us to say that on the show, and we never did say that on the show. But he'd hear like tubular bells, organ music. No. But he said that it was very slow, and then it moved off to the northeast towards New York. So Bob Gardner goes to investigate it, and he goes up to the Philadelphia Air Tower. He gets cleared. And they tell him, we had a large object with no transponder on the screen, and it veered off to the northeast. So the tower told him exactly what the witness said. So then, I tried to get them to send that to me in writing. So I filed a Freedom of Information Act and asked for the information so they would confirm it. So they kept sending it back to me saying it was beyond their record retention period. So I then spoke with the supervisor in the Philadelphia Tower, and she says, well, I'll send it to you. So she sends me the actual disc, like a CD, a disc, but you can't read it because you can't put it in your computer and read it. Only the airport can read it. Yeah, you need the Raptor program, which they use at the airport. So I sent it to MUFON in Denver, and at the Denver airport, they were able to read it, and they pulled 6 screens off with paints on it showing an object with no transponder. So it proved there was something there that didn't have a transponder on it. So I let her know that. Yeah. And she then said to me, wow, I'm surprised you got anything off the disc. So why would you say that? And the guy in Denver said, these discs have been copied over, like they didn't want you to read it. So they had copied over them, reused them to cover it up, then sent me the disc. Exactly. So now, and I've got her email and everything, and telling me, it was kind of interesting how they never put it in writing to us that we found this information. But then we're filming, the episode airs with Discovery Channel, so that airs. But then the History Channel, they filmed the Denise episode, that airs. And then we're filming the Cliff episode. So what happens is I'm going to film Denise, and that woman at the airport calls me and says, you can bring the camera crew up and interview us. So I called the History Channel, and they said, well, we can't because that's a different, film crew and producer. We got to do the Denise one first, and we're going to do Cliff in 3 weeks. So I call him back, and, I told, that's what he told me. Then a half hour later, he calls me back, and he says, I got bad news, John. The New York FAA said, you're not going up to the tower. They're not going to allow you to go up to the Philadelphia Tower and film. Yeah, I guess the History Channel called to get permission, or maybe she asked for permission, and they said no. Then he called a half hour later and said, I got more bad news. The episode on Cliff is canceled. So just like that, the FAA, because they didn't want us to go up to the tower, they canceled the episode on the History Channel. Now, we did film it in Canada for Close Encounters, maybe couple of years later, 2013 in Canada for Close Encounters, we filmed it. And again, the Denise episode airs. They never aired a Cliff episode on the tower. And I remember contacting them, and they said, well, the ratings aren't good. So they canceled the show and they didn't do it. So, but then in 2012, I end up on the Anderson Cooper show. Do you know who Anderson Cooper is? CNN, Anderson Cooper. I end up on the Anderson Cooper.
I don't, John.
Yeah, okay. Well, Anderson Cooper, he's a big, he has a TV show, Anderson Cooper Show. And so I end up on the Anderson Cooper Show, and they have me on the show. And I got Denise, and I have 2 girls from Kentucky who claim they were abducted. So I'm there to really defend them. And they brought Joe Nickel in from Skeptic magazine, and he was going to question them. So I'm on the show. But before we go into the show, I'm standing there, and I don't know who's in first. Somebody else, a different guest, is in for 15 minutes. So then at commercial, they're pushing me. You got to get in. You got to get on stage. And out walks Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher was in The Nanny. I don't know if you ever saw that TV series, The Nanny. But I was in third grade with Fran Drescher in Flushing,
Yeah.
Queens. So it's like, I'll never get to meet her again. It's like, hi, Fran. And they pushed us to get in. But the interesting thing is, Fran Drescher and her husband had a UFO encounter. And it would have been so cool if I could have thought of it to say, Fran, come on in. Come on in. We're going to talk about UFOs. So then when we were on the show, they highly edited it. They really didn't want it to look like UFOs were real. They edited out some of my answers. The audience laughed at Joe Nickel. And they edited the laughter out and all of that. So that case became the biggest investigation I ever did. And it got me on 4 TV shows, series, and then the Anderson Cooper show. So I did it on 5 different shows on television. So that was the biggest investigation that I had ever done, So I ended up writing that book, 12/21, 2012, A Prophecy. And then I wrote another book called The Day After 2012. I was given a lecture, and they said, what are you going to do when nothing happens in 2012? So I said, I guess it'll be the day after 2012. So I said, you know what? That's an interesting title. I think I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book called The Day After 2012, So I did that one. And then I ended up writing another one on end time prophecy about an asteroid. That was, there's an asteroid called Apophis, Apophis, and it's supposed to just miss Earth in the year 2029. Are you familiar with that? Apophis? Have you ever heard of that?
Only what I've listened to. Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so I said I'm going to write a book about this asteroid. Yeah.
You could tell us about it.
Yeah. So I decided to write a book, another end time prophecy. The real asteroid on Friday, April 13th, Friday the 13th, April 2029, is supposed to come in below our satellites and just miss Earth. And it's about 3/4 of a mile in size. And so I wrote another book on that. And then in 2020, I wrote the first book in the world on COVID. I called it The Wuhan Conspiracy, but it was a novel, and I made it a prequel to 2029, where I used the same characters in it. And so it's a prequel. The Wuhan Conspiracy is a prequel to Apophis 2029. But the interesting thing is that I wrote it. We shut down America on March 13th of 2020. I published the book on March 15th on Kindle. And a week later, on the 23rd, Amazon took the book down. So I wrote to them and said, why are you taking the book down? And they wouldn't answer me. They said, we can't tell you. So at the time, Trump was talking about the China virus, the Wuhan virus, COVID. And so they didn't like the title of my book, The Wuhan Conspiracy. So they took the book down, which is unbelievable that they would take my book. I said to them, this is a novel. There's fictional characters there. They took it down. And that's how, that's how everything
especially
is.
Without asking you.
Yeah. Well, you see, everything now is censored. Big Brother, Facebook is a waste of time. Over here in this country, the Democrats are like the Labor Party, but the Democrats are totally demonic. They're pagan. They practice paganism, like the old Vikings used to be pagan before Christianity. In America, the Democrats are pagan. They're paganists. They want abortion and child sacrifice, and it was unbelievable. But they ended up 7 months later. They put my book back up. So they took it down for 7 months.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, John? What
Yeah.
was COVID man-made?
Well, yes. And a matter of fact, in the book I wrote, I think I got everything correct. I said that it was produced in a lab in China, and China deliberately released it. Remember, I wrote this book 2 days after we shut down, 2 days. And I said China released it because they couldn't deal with Trump. Trump was putting tariffs on Chinese products. And, and I said the Democrats were working with China. They needed something to stop Trump. And it was COVID. So I believe it was man-made. It was released to stop Trump. China needed to stop him, and the Democrats needed something to stop him also. And they used the COVID virus, and then they used the George Floyd killing where the police put the knee on his neck, and they used that, and then they caused violence for years. For 2 years, Black Lives Matter and Antifa here were rioting. They killed 25 people. They injured 1,200 police, and they caused $2 billion in damage in cities, all to get the Democrats reelected and stop Trump. So that's what my book was about. Let me grab a bottle of water. I forgot to grab it when we started the show. I'm just going to run and get water, and I'll be right back. I'm getting dry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine so, because you've never stopped talking. And then we'll talk about your other books you've done. An Alternative History of Mankind.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. I got a bottle of water. I forgot I always have to have water when I talk, So the alternative history of mankind. It's very strange. When I joined MUFON in 1998, in 1999, I went to MUFON had their symposium over in Washington, D.C. So I said, I'm going to go and attend their conference. So I go to the conference, and when I'm there, I see this attractive blonde woman come in, but she's very strange looking, So, and I'm single. So at lunchtime, I made sure I got on line behind her. And I said, can I sit with you at lunch? And I'm looking at her. I don't know if she didn't look albino, but she was very white skinned, whitish hair, but her eyes were gray and bloodshot, So then we go back to the conference, and she never comes back. So she was there for 1 hour for the whole conference. So when the event's over, I go home, and I don't know what happens. I have an out-of-body experience. I'm floating above my house. I'm sleeping, and I see these hybrid children, these 2 hybrid children. So people are telling me you were abducted, right? So, there's this one kid, and he's like a 10, 12-year-old, but he's very muscular, and the bone is sticking out of his elbow, and he's got very big forearms and big eyes, and his hair plugs, and I have a Doberman. The dog is floating in the air, and he's poking the dog in the ribs. And I keep yelling at him, stop poking the dog. And then there's another kid standing there, and he's like a vampire. He's got these big buck teeth like a rat boy, and his hair is slicked back, and he's wearing like a black coat like Nosferatu, the vampire. Very, very strange dreams, if it's a dream, lucid dream. And then I keep waking up for like 4 nights. This goes on. Something's in the house. I'm waking up swinging my fist because, and I see this creature in my dream, a lucid dream. There's this creature standing next to me, and it's like a hairy creature standing there. So I don't know. But so what happens is that's 1999. In 2013, I go to Roswell to go to the UFO museum. And I go to Roswell, I go to the museum, and then I go to a Chinese restaurant to eat, and I see a woman there, looks just like the woman from 1999, look just like her. So again, albino looking, gray bloodshot eyes. It's not her. The one in 1999 was heavier, very big on the bottom, her legs, her butt. This one was not heavy, but the same type of face. So the following morning, I'm leaving, and I'm driving to Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I'm driving out of town. There she is hitchhiking. She's on the side of the road hitchhiking. She's got no purse, no bag, no luggage, no nothing. And I look at her and I say, what? How could you be hitchhiking? It's like 110 degrees. It's just July. It's over 100 degrees. It's sunny. It's hot. Where are you going? Where are you going? Because there's only one rest stop. It's 178 miles to Santa Fe. And about halfway, 90 miles, there's this little mostly abandoned town. And it has a gas station that was open and a brand new diner. It was weird, like 1950s diner with the black and white floor and girls in little skirts. And I remember them black skirts and stuff. And so it was weird. So I write the book about picking her up, and she's a hybrid. She's an alien, just like the one at the conference was a hybrid, half human, half alien. So she's trying to convince me about our history, that they upgraded us, not that they created us, but we were cavemen or apes, and they upgraded us. And I kept arguing with her that I believe in creation and God. I don't believe in evolution. And I don't believe that, aliens upgraded us. That's the thing. That's something the devil would tell you. I said, I don't believe. So our 3-hour drive to Santa Fe, New Mexico, that's what we discussed. So I wrote the book. So then what happens, and this is as weird as could be. October, I go to Scottsdale, Arizona. I watch baseball. They have the Arizona Fall League with the minor league baseball players. They play in the month of October in the Fall League. So I go to the games. Yeah, I go to the games. And then I go to a restaurant in Cave Creek. I sit down to eat, like a diner. In walks this girl, again, looks like those other two. Whitish hair, very white skin. She sits down across from me, hands me a book, and she says, now she's got light blue bloodshot eyes. The others had gray. She's got light blue bloodshot eyes. So she hands me a book and says, I know you from television. Oh, here's this. When I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, they have a UFO exhibit there, like a museum. I saw her there in the museum. So now it's like 2 days later, she follows me 20 miles, 25 miles away. She sits across. She must have been following me. And she gives me this book. And she says, you'll know what to do with this. She goes, there's some tall guy, about 7 feet tall, following me. And she goes, take the book. I don't want it. He wants it back. Right? And I said, well, where'd you get it from? She says, I was in a hotel in, I don't know what town she told me, but I looked it up. There's actually the hotel she told me, it existed. there in Phoenix, I think it was. That hotel was real. And she said that she wants to get rid of the book. So when I get back to the hotel, I look at the book, and the book is like, it says it's a Navy manual on time travel. A Navy manual on time travel, and like, let's say this is not
That's
the book.
incredible.
Yeah, so I opened the book, and on the inside, it's dated 2073. So the book is 50 years in the future. This is 2023. The book is 2073. So I'm saying to myself, this doesn't make sense. I mean, it was cloth bound, the pages glued like an old novel. I said, why would you tell me 50 years in the future, everything's not digital? Why would the book be printed and bound like a book from the 1980s? So then I'm reading it, and it's talking about how how there's only been one real UFO encounter. One. It was 1936 in the Black Forest of Germany. It crashed. Hitler got it. He didn't know what to do with it. I mean, what are you going to do with it? It's 1936. So they got it. So it doesn't have wings. They don't know what the hell to do with this thing, right? So they're scientists. They start looking into it. And if you know anything about the Nazis, they were, Hitler, he wanted all of the relics, the Ark of the Covenant, the Spear of Destiny, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. He actually sent his SS out to find all of these relics. So, and then they start developing, you're probably familiar, they developed the Hanabu, which was a flying saucer, right? And they developed the V-2 rockets, the jet engines. So they were that close to getting the atomic bomb before Oppenheimer. They were that close. And the German scientist, he deliberately sabotaged it. He refused to use heavy water. Otherwise, they would have had the atomic bomb first, and they would have used it on London first. That would have been the first place, probably London or Russia, maybe Moscow, because it's funny. Hitler actually liked the British, because of the Knights Templars. And King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And he was infatuated with the German Teutonic Knights. The Teutonic Knights were German Knights Templars, but they called them Teutonic Knights, and they fought in the Crusades. So it was kind of strange with that. But then the book, it talks about Roswell was actually, in Project Paperclip, the Americans got all the information from the Germans in Project Paperclip. Hans Kammler actually, he flew a plane over to the United States with all of their secrets and secret projects. And then we got a bunch of Germans that Werner von Braun and a bunch of them. And that's really where NASA started, was the German scientists. Germany was so far ahead of everybody else in engineering, and it was amazing. So you kind of wonder where did the Germans get all this technology from? If you know the Bell project, the Die Glock, the Bell, they were working on, they were working on anti-gravity at that time. And I remember seeing an old black and white video where they would take red mercury and they would compress it and spin it, and it would start to glow, give off radiation, and it would lift off the table. The cylinder would lift and hit the ceiling. So Roswell was really the Americans back engineering the technology, and it wasn't an alien. It was us That was our first time trying to get the thing to fly, and it crashed in Roswell. So then the book goes into how all of the cases through the years was our space program in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. It was us. It was the U.S. government back engineering, and they were able to do anti-gravity. We figure it out, and we've got the UFOs now. We're the only country that has the UFOs. And that's why America has such a huge budget deficit, $34 trillion, because we have put trillions of dollars into the UFO program. But then what this book is about is time travel. It then starts to talk about how certain cases, what was seen was them coming back from the future. And certain cases, in the 40s and 50s was us developing the UFOs. So it's it's hard to understand. Sometimes it was us, sometimes it was them in the future coming back. And I'm trying to think of that case. Yeah. But there was, if you remember, in 1983, 84, Hudson Valley, New York. There were 8,000 cases filed over like a 6-year period from 1984 to 1989. And that was us. We had a 300-foot UFO, and people were seeing it. It was triangular shaped, and people were seeing it fly down Hudson Valley, New York. That's the one that hovered right over the atomic reactors at Indian Point in New York. The reactors were here, it hovered right over them. That was ours. That was us. That's why the government never investigated it. You got a craft hovering over nuclear reactors, and nobody investigates it, because it was us. So so then the book goes into a lot of different cases and all. But what I found interesting in it was, with the time travel, they tried to go back in time to see who built the pyramids, Moses, Jesus. They wanted to see if the crucifixion was true. They couldn't. When they set the dial, like the time machine. Remember the time machine? I think that was filmed in England, the time machine. But they couldn't go. They couldn't go back prior to Jesus. They couldn't go back to Jesus's death. They couldn't go back prior to 32 AD. They set it for 20 BC. It wouldn't let them. Would not let them go prior to Jesus. So in the book, there's this discussion about, can they change circumstances, right? And then they talked about, okay, since we can't go back, what if we put, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, what if we go back and we take the Dead Sea Scrolls and replace them with a forgery that tells a totally different story, but they weren't allowed to. When they kept trying to, it would not take them there. So that kind of tells you there's, God is real. God allows you to time travel, or he doesn't. Because if you're time traveling, you're basically going through another dimension, like angels, demons. That's all interdimensional, and God's either going to allow you to do it or not do it. So I found, it's interdimensional. Time travel is interdimensional. If you remember with Star Trek, sometimes when they went to warp factor 9 or 10, and they were going so fast, they ended up in a different dimension or a different time period. Then they had to try to go back and get back to their own time period, if you remember some of those episodes. So it was very, very strange. So, So I wrote that book. It's called They Are Us. I published that just last month in February. I think it was beginning of February or end of January. I published that book called They Are Us. It's about the fact that there's only been one UFO
Right.
crash in the Black Forest of Germany, and all of the other UFOs has been us developing the project. So then I moved on. I wrote a book called The Case for UFOs. I should have taken all those books so I could hold them up and you can see them. But if they go to Amazon
Yeah.
books, yeah, just go to Amazon.com, put my name in, John Ventry, and you'll see the 11 books there. You'll see them. So I wrote a book called The Case for UFOs.
Yeah.
It has like
Right.
the scales of justice, where you got a UFO and Project Blue Book, and so in that book, The Case for UFOs, I put all the evidence for UFOs. There's a section, and that book is all the evidence why UFOs would be real. I didn't know at the time.
Is it like a training manual?
Well,
John,
it should.
Is it like a training manual?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I was with Mutual UFO Network, I was on their board, and I said to them, all of your new investigators should read this book. This tells you the entire history of UFOs, and they should really read the book. But they didn't do that. So that's another book I wrote. Then I wrote a book about Pennsylvania, because I live in Pennsylvania, called UFOs over Pennsylvania. So that big case that I told you about with Denise and Cliff, that was in Pennsylvania. So that's in there. And I did the history of all of the Pennsylvania cases. So I wrote that book on, so I ended up writing 3 books on end time prophecy. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 on UFOs. Then I got into, because of what happened when I went to the MUFON Symposium in '99, those encounters, I started having more encounters over the years. And the UFO people said, you're probably being abducted and these are aliens, right? But to me, it was very demonic. It wasn't, I don't believe it was alien. I believe this was demonic, So one night I'm laying in bed. It's like 5 a.m. I wake up suddenly. There's a guy standing down the hallway. My bedroom, I can see down the hallway. There's a guy standing at the end of the hallway. He's taller than the frame of the wood, the door frame. The door frame's 6'8". So he's over 7 feet tall. Very long arms, very long legs. He's got a little tiny waist like this, 12 inches. I'm looking. He's standing there like he's frozen, like he didn't expect me to wake up. He's got a square head, like he's wearing a helmet, like a knight, like a Templar knight. He's wearing a helmet, and he's just frozen, and he's backlit. So I can't see his features, but I can see him standing there. So I crawled to the foot of the bed, and I'm looking, and I said, well, there's somebody standing there. This is like 30 seconds. He's standing there and I can see him. So I said to myself, step over the footboard and charge him and hit him. I was taking kickboxing. I said, hit him as hard as you can. A voice in my head says, you don't want to do that. That could be unsafe. You want to step off the side of the bed and put a light on. So that's what I did. He was gone. So, and the light was off. So I walked down the hall, put the light on, walked down the hall. I don't see any footprints. I walked back. I walked past my Doberman there and back. He don't wake up. He's sound asleep, snoring. Now, you can't walk past the dog and the dog be asleep. They wake up. They always do. So, so now I'm thinking, my friends are saying this is an abduction. Almost like with abductions, how the woman is abducted and the man's sound asleep in bed, and the woman gets taken and she don't understand why he doesn't wake up, So over the years, I keep having these very strange occurrences at my house, and my kids experience it also. And you know how, it's funny, whether you deal with aliens or demons, it goes on to the next generation. It's intergenerational and stuff. So I end up writing a book. Yeah. I write a book called The String Theory of the Unexplained. So now I start looking at all of these UFO cases. People, I read all of the abduction books. I start reading them, right? And I said, this doesn't sound like an abduction to me. Betty Andresian, Carla Turner. I'm reading it, and what they're describing is a demonic infestation like I'm having in my house. And my kids are experiencing it every time they come over, So, because they lived in New Jersey with my ex-wives, but when they came over, they would have paranormal activity at night. So I write a book, and I then look at a string theory of the unexplained, and I look at a lot of the abduction cases, and I said, these aren't abductions. These are demonic infestations, So then I'm at the MUFON Symposium in 2017 or 16, and I go home. I'm at it, and the director. I'm sitting with the director's wife at dinner, right? So we start talking. I start telling them about the activity in my house, and the wife is very religious. She's Catholic, right? And she says to me, John, I think that she says this is demonic. This is not alien. She's told me what I believe. It's demonic. She goes, do you know? She has been at the conference over the years, and she said, I have seen shadow people walking in the conference among the seats, among the aisles. She has seen these tall, black shadow people walking among the crowd. So then in 2018 or 19, I think it was 2019, a bunch of the MUFON people and state directors see shadow people at the conference. And one of the investigators on the abduction team, passes away in his hotel room. He's like 43 years old, and he dies.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And all the directors are saying, what is going on? We see ghosts, shadow people at the conference. So I write this book and talking about really demonology. And I start investigating demonology. And I write this book saying how a lot of the cases that I read, and I described why these are demonic, they're not UFO. So then what I did was I always kept a diary of my own experiences, and I had a couple of things happen when I was a kid. A couple of things happened when I lived in Oklahoma. When we moved to New Jersey in 1991, before I moved here to Pennsylvania, that house was totally haunted. We'd be in the den, and you'd hear the moving boxes sliding around the garage. My wife's entire personality changed, and we got divorced. There, and I think it was these demonic influence that turned her against me. And my kids there, my son would go to bed at night, and in the wall behind his head, he'd hear a voice say, I'm going to get you. My daughter would be in her bedroom, and she would say she hears a rocking chair and a baby crying at night, and she hears voices and a rocking chair in the empty bedroom. So, the kids never told me any of this because I was divorced and moved here, but I would go back every other weekend to see them. They never told me. So I get the house back in New Jersey, and my girlfriend says to me, she moved in with me, she goes, John, when you're away traveling at night, I hear a baby crying and a rocking chair. Same thing my daughter said, right? So then one time we're in the bedroom.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're in the bedroom just talking, and there's the little end table light on. We see this black cloud come rolling in along the ceiling. It was unbelievable. It was like rolling, and it hovered right above us. We were scared. We looked back, it was gone. So I moved here to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Same thing happens here. I'm here all night. There's a banging on the wall. All night, a banging, a banging. And then my sister comes to visit, and I'm upstairs. She's screaming, John, come down here. I come running down. Her husband, her kids, they all saw the black shadow rolling across the ceiling. They saw it. There's witnesses to all of this stuff. So I kept track of all of this over the years. So I wrote a book called The Ufologist. And I wrote it originally a few years ago, and then I updated it just in October when I got knighted as a Templar, right? I also and I started writing that book on They Are Us about time travel. I said, let me now go back and update the other book, because I wrote that through 2016. I updated it through 2023. So I updated, that book, and very interesting. I brought a priest in to cleanse the house. This woman I met, she told me the prayers and what to do with holy water and all of that. And it's really an unbelievable story. Yeah. The activity, my entire yard, a portion of my yard burst into flames. I would get all this activity, loud bangs. My Doberman would go after it. You didn't see anything, but he'd be, barking and stuff looking up. He saw it. He heard it. So I wrote the book. And So then, we're almost out of time here, but I want to tell you about another book I wrote. Two other books I wrote. I wrote a book about slavery. When they came out with the 1619 Project about African slavery, they were saying that, the country was founded for slavery, which is a lie. So I wrote a book about the Irish slavery in 1625. So I called it the 1625 Project, how bad the English treated the Irish and made them slaves and brought them over to the islands and over to America. And then I wrote that book on the Wuhan conspiracy, on the virus, on the COVID virus. So I've written 11 books. So that's basically it. 2 on demonology. I think 5 on UFOs is 7. 3 on end time prophecy is 10. So it must be 4 on UFOs. And then I have 1 on slavery and 1 on the COVID virus. So that's basically it. I've written 11 books. I retired from MUFON, so I still speak at conferences and I do podcasts. So that's my story.
Just a quick question from Steph. If military wants to keep these crafts secret, why do they fight over major polluted over major polluted areas? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, populated areas. Well, yeah. You see, that I explain that in my new book, They Are Us, because they are our government is the one that wants you to believe in UFOs. But it's really our craft. That's what it is. It's not aliens. There's only been one alien crash in 1936, and I explain that in the book. So everything you see, the government flies, the American UFO flies over an area, populated so you can see it. Then you report it that you're seeing a UFO. It's ours. So it's a cover story for the Advanced American Project. That's what it is. It's just a cover story.
Right. I know Steph she'll be pleased about that. Yeah, we're about come to the end of the show. Where can people get your books? And where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, just go to Amazon.com and put my name in, John Ventry. Go to Amazon, and you'll see, put John Ventry on Amazon. You'll see all my books. And, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a message there. But, if you, I have a website called, what is it? johnventry.blogspot.com. And I did a lot of work with people there in Europe, Steve Mira in Manchester, UK, and Brian Allen up in Scotland.
Yeah, I know Steve.
Yeah, Steve Mira. Well, if you get his e-magazine, the Phenomena magazine, I write an article in there. I've been at least 20 articles I've written in his magazine, Phenomena magazine. So I've been around. I've written for a number of magazines, but go to Amazon.com. You'll see all my books, and I think they're all very insightful and informative. Of course, I think they're the best books out there on UFOs.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, John, for coming on the show. It's
You're
been
welcome.
wonderful. I know everybody will enjoy it.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you.
we love your books.
Yeah.
Thank you again. And you take
All right.
care.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
We'll talk again sometime.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Finish the show.